Okay. Well, I think it's time. I think it's time. Let's get ready to rumble. Because we had in Dancing with the Stars this week the face-offs. I have no idea what a face-off is. I learned for the first time. So let's just remind everybody what we do in this segment. We do a Bachelor podcast. And sometimes, because the Bachelor franchise is owned by the same company that owns Dancing with the Stars, we get Bachelor contestants on Dancing with the Stars. As it so happens, Amy and I are amateur ballroom dancers. We have been for about 12 years. We've even competed and we've won a couple of amateur championships. So we kind of have a clue what we're talking about in this venue. And we've got our last Bachelor, Joey, and our last Bachelorette, Jenn, on Dancing with the Stars. So we need to do some crossover commentary. And because it's always more fun with three, we had to pick a third contestant. I'm a New England Patriots fan. So Danny Amendola is our third. And this week's theme was Halloween, which I just want to point out, everybody, Halloween, best holiday of the year. October, best month of the year. Single best night of the year is October 31st. So I am in. And this is a face-off episode. Night. Yeah, this is the best episode. I've been so excited to talk about this because knowing nothing about Dancing with the Stars, I don't know how it's scored. I don't watch any of the judging. I literally just watch the videos on YouTube of exactly the dances. I have no commentary from the judges. I get no scores from the judges. I'm just giving you my thoughts after a couple of watches. I didn't have any idea even what a face-off was. I was like, I get 5 videos this week? Fantastic. And can I just point out, sometimes you're like, maybe this whole universe is just a simulation and I'm like, or maybe I'm in a dream, because how more perfect could this have worked out? Like Danny and Joey do a face-off, which means I don't even have to watch some other random couple. However, Jenn has to do a face-off with Steven. But here's the thing. So since we've been doing these recaps on Dancing with the Stars, YouTube's been feeding me more Dancing with the Stars content, and I usually just scroll on past it. But I happened to this week see Steven and Riley, and I decided to watch the video. And it wasn't just a video, it was a little bit longer clip. And I loved them. They're adorable. I mean, they're both 12 years old.
You know
right?
Who he is, right?
A gymnast Olympian or something.
Yeah.
I don't watch the Olympics.
Pommel horse guy.
Yeah, either way. I mean, he is so cool, so fun. They look like they should be a couple. What do the kids say? I'm shipping that.
They're not. They're both. She just outed or came public with her relationship. I think she's dating an NFL player, and he's in a relationship too.
Either way, I mean, these two, they're so cool, so fun, and cute. I love his. Yeah. They're so cute together. They're perfectly coupled, perfectly paired, and so I was going to come on here this week and say, as soon as Danny gets eliminated, he's going to be our third. However, after Danny performed this week, I don't think he's going to be the first of the 3 to get eliminated. Also, worth mentioning, I don't watch the elimination, so I wait on Amy to tell me who got eliminated. Don't tell me at the end if somebody got eliminated.
Okay.
So,
fair.
Let's.
So you watched Steven's dance from Halloween night?
I didn't watch his single one this week.
I
watched his. No. This was. I watched it. Something popped up from a few weeks back.
I highly recommend watching every performance. I mean, they were good. They were heavy on, with the exception of Joey's, which we'll get into. They were heavy on the lifts and tricks. I will say that.
That is the theme that I got as well from the ones I did watch.
It was great. It was very entertaining.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a couple things I want to start off with. First off, there was actually a triple face-off happening with Danny and Joey this evening or last evening, whatever evening it was on. There was the official face-off, which I can't wait to get into. There was also a secondary face-off because they both were doing their single routines or their individual routines as Argentine tango. So you've now got a double face-off. And I also think that we have a triple face-off here happening because I have said, I think Whitney is the better dancer, but I think Jenna is the better choreographer. And they were definitely felt like they were in a choreography battle this week. And can I know it's taken us a long time to get into it. I'm so excited for this week. I really enjoyed what I watched. I think I'm digging Jenna Johnson. Jenn Jameson. What's her name? Jenna Johnson.
Jenna Johnson.
I think I'm crushing hard on her. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I think I'm crushing hard
You
on
can
Jenna
crush on
Johnson.
her. She's amazing.
She's awesome. She's amazing.
Yeah.
I have watched their samba routine every time I go to watch one of Joey's videos. I'm like, I gotta watch that samba routine again. That back thing with the down and then the boop boop back. Awesome.
Yeah. That's gone viral. People, you know how the week before
amazing.
It was people trying to do the leg thing with Whitney and
lift,
Danny. Yeah. Last week it was this thing.
Yeah, I mean,
she's incredible. Her choreography is amazing.
Yeah, without question. So, there's so many ways to enter this, but I guess we just got to pair them up, and let's just start with Danny and Joey together. We'll do the individuals, and let's just start off with a quick explanation of Argentine tango, shall we? So,
sure.
There's American tango, which we've seen a bunch of, right? And now they come out and say Argentine tango. Well, okay, it's probably very similar, right? No, they're basically two completely different dances. So there's a couple things to note here. Tango, American tango, what we've seen on the show a lot, is one of the core smooth dances. It's a dance where you are moving a lot across the floor. It's oftentimes you open up and you're enclosed frame a lot. It's a very, very kind of wide, kind of closed frame, but you open up and it's very flashy and fancy. It's a non-casual dance, we'll call it. Argentine tango is the exact opposite. It is closer in a lot of ways to one of the Latin rhythm dances. You are in tight frame. You are always in frame together. You almost never open up. It's a very tight dance. It's very casual. And one of the really frustrating things for me, if you've been watching these recaps in the past, is I hate when we have dances that aren't real dances. Contemporary, I say it every week that we get one of these, not a real dance, annoys me. Same thing when we get somebody doing jazz. Well, the thing about Argentine tango is there's actually no formal timing to it. You can kind of do whatever timing you want. There are steps, though. So it's not as bad as jazz and contemporary. There still are legitimate steps, but you can kind of do it to whatever timing you want. And so it's a weird dance. It's a little bit out there. I think
it's harsh to compare it to jazz or contemporary because there is a framework.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
It's just the timing is not as linear.
Yes. Well, yeah, exactly. The other really interesting thing about it is it's one of the only dances where the male or the lead will oftentimes start backwards. In ballroom dance, the natural state is woman is moving backwards and the man is moving forwards. And so you almost, not saying that you don't both do either at any given time, but that's your natural state. And typically you start a dance in your natural state. And with Argentine tango, it's actually quite common for the man to start moving backwards, which is one of the only ballroom dances where that actually happens. So it's like this dance. It's sort of out there on the outskirts on its own, a little bit bizarre within the ballroom framework. And it's almost misnamed by even calling it tango because it's so divorced from American tango, right?
All right, let's get into it.
All right. So I guess we just start with Joey's routine. It was absolute killer choreography. Musicality was absolutely amazing. His lines were solid. He's getting better every single week. I don't know what he got scored, but it was a fantastic routine start to finish. The ventriloquist thing with the puppet freaks me out. Don't like any of that. But it was so weird that I was like, this is amazing.
So the theme for the week was Halloween, but it was like nightmare, and so every star gave some dialogue about things that scare them. And for Joey, it was like the ventriloquist puppet because they look weird because they're kind of creepy. Danny was a snake. Jenn, vampire, that kind of thing. One of the things that I've seen Jenna say about Joey is that he's really good at getting into character, and some of his best performances are when he is playing a character. And so putting him in the role of being the ventriloquist and her being the puppet, like really worked for the dynamics of this dance. And yeah, the musicality, the performance, like it was just so good. That one move where like he takes like as though he takes her
the
heart
zipper
out
in the heart. Yep.
Yeah, it was just so well executed. He was super impressive.
And he has a finesse about him that feels natural to a dancer. And that is something that's really hard to get. And it just feels like he commanded the dance. It felt like he was leading. And this is always a danger, right? Where, the pro will can back lead you, or they can really be lead, whether or not they're technically the leader or the follower. Oftentimes you see in these dances where the pro is really doing the leading, even if it's a back lead, and you don't get that sense in this dance. Joey, it felt like he had command of this and he was leading this dance, and it was just awesome to watch. It was a great performance all around. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what more to even say. I mean, it wasn't a simple routine either. There was some challenging steps in there.
It was great, and again, especially juxtaposed to Danny's, which we'll talk about next. It was actually a dance performance, not a lifts and tricks performance.
Yes.
And this dance was one of the few. I think Chandler Kinney's was another. She did a Viennese waltz that was like outstanding. That was like a true dance. And I mean, I thought he killed it. For your reference, he got 2 10s and a 9. And the person that gave him a 9 just said that there were 2 lifts where like his base seemed a little bit shaky. But other than that, they talked about like how like natural of a dancer he is, like how much he's improved or progressed. But yeah, fantastic.
I agree with those scores. I mean, fantastic. So now we go to the Danny unofficial face-off, also doing the Argentine tango. I'm going to say that it was in some ways a better routine than Joey's, but and it wasn't that it wasn't executed well. It's that Danny just has no finesse, right?
He's so stiff.
He's very stiff, and that's the problem. Is that it feels like he's a little stiff and a little tentative. Whitney is still leading him, even though he's taking more command each week, where he's doing more of the leading. You still feel like Whitney's sort of dragging him along just a little bit, whereas you don't get that sense with Joey. One thing I want to illustrate, because it's a perfect illustration this week when they're doing the exact same dances. Go back and watch the video and look at when they're doing like leg extensions where they're kind of doing something low to the ground or something. Watch the back leg. What is Joey's leg? It's dead straight, right? Danny's leg is bent. That right there is oftentimes a telltale sign of sort of the experience level, right? It takes a lot of practice and a lot of strength and a lot of buildup and knowledge of the dances to really, when you're kind of getting low in some of these dances, to get good extension, especially on the legs. You also see it on the leg sweeps a lot of the time. And what will happen is you shorten the leg sweep because you bend your knees. This happens all the time. And this is a great example where when you compare the two, just take those couple of steps alone in isolation. They both did them. And Joey's fantastically executed. Danny's a little sloppy. You match that with the lack of finesse. And then you match that with the fact that you feel like Whitney's still dragging him just a little bit through the routine. And clearly, you know that Joey is winning in this sort of unofficial face-off. That being said, lots of lifts and tricks. In fact, he had some.
I mean, that's where
cool
Danny's athleticism and strength shows. Like that's while in lifts and tricks, the person that's getting lifted does have to do a lot of work. And it's like you're basically trying to brace your entire body to like almost remove the weight. Like you don't want someone to be carrying dead weight. But that's where Danny shines. Is he's an incredibly strong athlete, and you see that there. Fans love Danny, and especially more.
Do they love Danny or do they love Whitney?
I think both, but I think Danny specifically. Again, if you're not a dancer, like his performance seems really strong, but he's not actually like dancing very much or very well. But like for the performative aspect, for the entertainment, like he's puts on a show in that sense, and with all the lifts and tricks. He did earn 1 10 and 2 9s. So the scoring overscored that one. Agreed. The scoring, there's been a lot of criticism of the scoring in general this season, but the scoring for this episode in particular seemed way off. Too high scored, in my opinion.
Completely agree there. All right, so let's go over to their face-off, their official face-off now, shall we? So they are doing the jive. Now, interestingly enough, they both have done a jive, or no, only Danny has done a jive before this.
I thought Joey did, but
I think they both did. Yeah. Yeah. So they both, this is the second jive for both of them. So I would expect that the jive here should be better than average because they've already got a little experience and not learning a new dance, right? Argentine tango, way outside the box. I would have expected that to be a little bit shakier because they got to learn a whole new dance. Second week doing this one. So this is a little bit closer to what we call a heat, right? So there's different types of competitions. You have showcases, right, where you're one couple on the floor, you're doing some pre-scripted routine, and this pre-scripted routine is going to be big and flashy and lifts and tricks, and it's going to be a crowd pleaser. Heats are you have multiple couples on the floor. Oftentimes you have a pattern, but maybe you kind of like you have to navigate the floor and get around people. And so you might not be able to do your perfect pattern every time. But the judges are going to look at all the couples and glance around and score everybody. And they might only be looking at you for 3 seconds and then go on to another couple. So what we got here in this face-off is sort of like the halfway between, where there's multiple couples on the floor. So the judges' attentions are going to be distracted between the two, or vacillating back and forth between the two, which is very relevant in how you structure your choreography. But you're not navigating the floor because you have your defined space already, right? And there's only 2 of you. So the thing that is really relevant here, and it's going to play a big factor in Jenn versus Steven later, is that you need a routine that is going to drag the eyes of the judge towards you, right? Ultimately, they are choosing when they're looking at each couple, right? And there's no requirement. Nobody's sitting there with a stopwatch making sure that they watch you for 5 seconds and you for 5 seconds and you for 5 seconds. And what oftentimes can happen in these types of competitions is that if one couple is doing something that is particularly flashy and complicated, it's going to drag the eye in that direction and it will linger there longer. And so that's something just to note. The other important thing to know is that the judge's eyes aren't on you 24/7. So if you make a mistake, you keep going because there is a possibility that the judges didn't even see it because they weren't looking at you at that second. And so there's a lot more strategy to this kind of setup. And I give all that context because I think we saw some really poor strategy out of Jenn and Sasha, as well as Joey and Jenna in this week's face-off. I think they both didn't do enough to drag the eye. And meanwhile, Whitney put together a routine for her and Danny that was far superior at dragging the eye. And Steven and Riley, is that her name? Steven and Riley in particular, it was hard to watch Jenn, which we'll get to in a second, because my eyes kept dragging to Steven. It was that compelling.
It's going to be interesting to consider that feedback when I tell you what happened. But the also the placement on the floor, like
matters
clearly Joey and Jenna and Steven and Riley are at a disadvantage in being across the floor from or maybe they're at an advantage, right? Like they're not necessarily able to look at their feet in the same way, but like, the Jenn and Sasha and Whitney and Danny are literally right in the judges' faces, which I guess could be good or bad, but you probably have to do a lot more to gain attention if you're across the floor. So I thought that was an interesting way that they that they divided the floor.
So one of the tricks to doing heats is because when you do a heat, you're not given a specific area of the floor. There's 10 couples, when your heat's coming up, and you just enter the floor from whatever angle, you position yourself wherever you have room. And so one of the things that you'll oftentimes find is that you'll start to see people jockeying, because a lot of times in these competitions, you'll have, hundreds of heats. And so you'll be like, 10 heats away from whenever the next time you're going to go on the floor is. And you already see people jockeying to enter the floor as close to the judges as possible so that they can position themselves quickly. And that's like a strategic thing. You do not want to be on the other side of the floor. And so there's absolutely a strategic advantage. It also means that you are going to be seen if you make a mistake, but you can't score high if they also don't see you either. So it's a strategic thing that if you have confidence, you want to be as close to the judges as possible. So let's just start off with the symmetry of this dance. It was the same dance. I mean, they opened with an Around the World. They both ripped their shirts off together. They both dipped the girls together. And then they ended the dances in very comparable positions.
Mm-hmm.
It just felt like Whitney and Jenna like tag teamed up and said, these are the time and we're going to hit these 4 steps and it's going to be very symmetric. So it will be appealing to the crowd. Because I don't think it's statistically possible that they managed to nail all 4 of those in one shot.
No, they had to have planned that. They had to have planned that. Yeah. I thought that was cool that they started, again, talk about a face-off. They started the same and then diverged. Based purely on skill level. Like,
yes, they came back together at different points as well. So
it was very cool. But you saw, in my opinion, the disparity of skill level. Again, we have Joey doing actual dancing and we have Danny doing lifts and tricks.
Mm-hmm. Yes. But to that end, I did think that this was Joey's weakest actual performance. It felt like they put so much time and effort into the Argentine tango, and this became an afterthought. And it felt weak relative to all of his other dances. And it wasn't particularly flashy. That's another problem. There was nothing to drag the eye. Meanwhile, you've got Danny and Whitney. He's flipping her all around and doing all kinds of fancy whatever. It just, to me, Danny was not as crisp. He wasn't as the skill level wasn't necessarily there. But it was a more of a crowd pleasing dance in a situation like this. So I would guess and think that more people voted for him via the phones just based on skill alone. I think
I don't think America voted. I think the judges determined the winner of the face-off, and they picked Jenna and Joey. And far and away they won. I mean, it was so much more. The skill level was so much higher. The competency was so much higher. They looked like dancers.
Yes.
And Joey is good at faking a performance. Danny, you could read it all over his face when he's like kind of unsure. And it just seeing the two of them, I watched it together. Then I watched just Joey's side of the screen. Then I watched just Danny's side of the screen. And then I watched it 4 times just to like really make sure I was giving them both attention. And it was just, it wasn't even fair. How much better Joey was than Danny. They're just 2 different levels of dancers.
Yes. Yeah.
You know?
And but the one thing I will say is I do think that I have to give the point to Whitney for finally beating Jenna in a choreography contest. I think her choreography for this was better for the venue, better for the event.
Yeah. Well, and she also like knows her partner well, right? Like knows what to do to make him shine so that she can shine and kind of like, again, drag the eye.
She strategized this really well.
Yeah. She's really good at that for sure.
Yep. All right. Shall we go over to Jenn's individual performance?
Yes. So she performs a contemporary to Olivia Rodrigo's Vampire, which I love that song so much. So
great
good.
Song. Here's my first problem. She's doing the lore. She's role playing the lore of a zombie to a song about a vampire. And so we've muddled our undead lore. And that was, I'm not going to say I'm going to give too many demerits to it, but it definitely was something that bothered me, just in general. Like, let's get our undead monsters right, please. That being said, we know I don't like contemporary because it's not a real dance, but as a piece of art and entertainment, I actually really liked this choreography. I thought it was compelling, interesting. I thought that the more gymnastic-y side of what she was doing was quite impressive. These were not easy steps to do, not easy, lifts and tricks, but it was very much, again, a lifts and tricks performance. There was no dancing here. This was a theater performance. And that's where my frustration
is. Contemporary. So that's like where it's like fine. Her athleticism in this, I mean, throughout this competition, she's really, I mean, we knew she was an athlete. She played, college lacrosse. But like her athleticism just in this season has been amazing. This dance in particular, I was so impressed, like with her like fitness level.
So smooth. Yep.
Yeah. And so that was great. It did seem she seemed a little shaky the entire night. Shaky on her feet, like unsteady on her feet a little bit, or maybe a little unsure. She was giving Danny face, like
Yep.
with dancing at times. But I thought this was a really good performance from her.
Yep. It was definitely one of the most entertaining performances she's done for me, even though it wasn't really a dance. I wouldn't score it high on a dance competition, but on an entertainment factor alone, I'd score it really high. I liked it a lot.
So Jenn, similar to Danny, scored 110 and 2 9s.
That's way overscored in my opinion. Don't like that at all.
Agree.
But
agree.
Okay. So we go to the face-off with Jenn versus Steven doing salsa. So let's just say salsa is salsa our favorite dance?
Yeah,
I think it's true, right?
True.
Yeah, salsa.
I love salsa.
Salsa. It's probably our strongest dance. It's the dance that we enjoy the most. It's what we dance the most. It's what we take the most lessons on. So this is our dance. If you're going to listen to anything we have to say about any dance, this is probably the one. So before we talk about the dance itself, I just want to give a thorn to production. What were they doing with the cutaways and like leave the camera alone? Why are you shooting off out into outer space and then you're suddenly like those cutaways where it's like I'm going to show you just one couple now and then I'm going to the other couple halfway through a flip tumble routine. It's like leave the camera alone. Just leave it there. Like I want to see both couples. I'll decide who I want to look at.
Blocking somewhere. Yeah.
Oh, it was whoever was in the production booth. Seriously, you should be demoted and not allowed to film the next one. It was bad. I was so frustrated. That being said, okay, I do not have good things to say about Jenn's routine here. It was very bronze one. The routine was not that dissimilar from a heat routine you and I did 10 years ago. She was off timing everywhere. And it wasn't like she was off by half a beat, a quarter beat. She was off in some cases by 2 beats. It was real bad.
It was hard to watch.
It was hard to watch. And it was so bad, right? You're on the split screen. It was so bad. And there was so much interesting stuff happening with Steven that I couldn't stop. I was trying to do the same thing. I'm going to watch her, then I'm going to watch him, then I'll watch them together. And then I'll do one more watch to whatever cleanup. And her routine was so boring that I just couldn't help but drift my eyes to the point where I after the third attempt, I literally covered half of the screen so that my eyes could not look at Steven. That's how bad this routine was. It was not good. It was boring. It was poorly executed. The timing was bad. There was no real the actual routine itself. There was nothing compelling about it. I mean, there really wasn't. One lift.
I like I said, it was hard to watch. Total bronze one. I at one point I was like, what dance are they supposed to be doing? It like I was like, is this supposed to be a cha-cha? Like I really couldn't follow what they were doing at all. I will say though, Jenn actually won this face-off, which shocked me. I thought I was watching these on TikTok last night as they were coming through, and I thought it was like a mistake, and so I like had to go back and verify. But it was in fact.
I mean, it was.
Jenn. They praised
this was her
Jenn's
worst
hip
performance yet,
and how she danced the entire time. But they also loved Steven's tricks and lifts throughout.
She danced the entire time. It was 90 seconds. It's a dance competition.
Well, I mean, to the point that I keep making, like Joey is the only one of the only ones out here like actually dancing. The others are just doing tricks,
hanging
whole time.
out. This was not good. But so Steven, on the other hand, so this is what I want to say about Steven. Energy level. Compare the energy level of Steven versus the other 3 couples. I think you can say easily that Joey rivals him, but he is miles ahead of Jenn and handily over Danny, right? Just love the energy. He had some timing issues. His routine here, I feel like the face-offs in general were the secondary concerns. They did their individuals where they spent like 75% of the time and only like 25% of the practice time on these.
Well, a majority of the points come from their
individual.
The individual performances. I think the winners of these only got a bump of 3 points.
Interesting. I don't know how the point systems work, but either way, I really enjoy Steven. I think Riley is cute as a button. I think that they dance well together. He had some interesting, fun tricks. It helps that he's like an Olympic gymnast, which means he can get away doing all kinds of stuff. But I do think that he relied way too heavily on lifts and tricks, like way too heavily. But still, I don't know how. Like, yes, he had some little timing issues. Yes, he wasn't really dancing enough, but like Jenn was doing bronze 1 and she was off timing all over the place. He clearly was better. Like, I don't know how on earth you could give it to Jenn.
Well, that's why the judging on this show is it feels like a favorites contest,
Yep. So that's what I got this week. So anything else we want to talk about?
Well, I do have some news for you.
Who got eliminated?
Who do you think got eliminated?
Well, it's not Joey, right? And I think people really love Whitney, even though, like, of these three, Jenn's performance was so bad tonight. And she's had some other shaky ones. Danny's had some shaky ones, but at least Danny's on the incline where there's no consistency with Jenn. So the other thing to consider is I don't know how much of an overlap there is, but I think Danny probably, because he's a New England Patriot, he knows how to say the right thing without angering anybody in the audience. That's just, they get great media training over the Patriots.
I think he's also dating like a very popular influencer, so I imagine that helps with votes.
Sure, yeah. Meanwhile, we know that Jenn is a wildly unlikable person, and as a result,
she's got a whole bunch of Redditors that rally for Jenn.
Sure, but what does your comedian friend call them? The Dome of the Undateables. Like, if somebody said to me that they were hardcore up, a fan of Jenn, I would immediately say, okay, well, I wouldn't date you and I wouldn't set you up with any of my friends, right? That's just the truth of it. She's not a particularly likable person. I don't know if that permeates through to the audience of this. I don't know how much crossover there is, and and then we do know that she's good in short settings. We loved her on Joey's season. The second that she got a little bit more airtime, and we realized, oh, she's actually just a really toxic personality and kind of awful to be around. So
she's just immature,
Yeah. So I think if you're going on trajectory, Danny's on the upswing. Jenn is just erratic, and so you'd go with Jenn. I think if you go overall performance to date, you'd eliminate Danny. But I think trajectory really matters here. And I think the popularity component is really tough. But I think Danny probably has more popularity than Jenn. And so, if I was going to eliminate one of the three, I'd eliminate Danny. But I think America probably would eliminate Jenn. How'd I do?
Jenn went home. Yeah.
Makes sense.
If there's a Dancing with the Stars couple that you would like to hear our feedback on, drop it in the comments below and we will add them to our trio. Or maybe we'll, as they dwindle down enough, we could probably cover them all.
Yeah.